everyone, this is Eflex and welcome back to another A Producer's Approach video. In this video we're going to be looking at Soulero's song Pussycat. So if my voice is a little bit lower than some of the other videos, just know that I have some family members that are kind of sleeping right now, so I kind of want to be a little more quiet, so you'll get the more ASMR kind of low voice version from me. So if you guys haven't watched these videos in the past, I basically break these videos into 3 different parts. I basically have an intro backstory section, then after that I have a breakdown analysis section, and then lastly I just kind of close the video with an outro section. So as you guys have noticed, the last video I did a song on the album 009 Reunion, and just so happens the next song I was gonna make an APA video for was a song on 009. So there you go, you got the back-to-back 009 APA videos right here. But anyways, Soulero song Pussycat, I believe is his first release on Monstercat, and you know, we listened to his song Miss Me earlier in another video, and his house style is good, like as you've seen with that song, and he has released some other EDM and house songs on Monstercat. But for me, the electro and complextro style of Soulero is really unique, and where his style really shined back in the day on Monstercat. And I don't know, for me, he kind of falls in line with a lot of the great artists that made a lot of complextro and electro on Monstercat. So you know, when I give my list of like Rogue, Noise Storm, I always include Soulero as well for the really good electro complextro artists. And as I referenced back in my last video, 009 was the album that personally for me I purchased on my own back when I was in high school. So this album to me means quite a bit in terms of kind of nostalgia's sake. And there are a lot of other artists on this album that had great songs that I hope to do APA videos for in the future, like Run Funk, I believe, with his song A Dream, or Turn Around, I can't remember which one was in this album, Time Warp by Noise Storm, Tonight by 2/3, and The Anthem by Varian, Project 46, and Afixa, just to name a few songs on 009. It's been a while since I've listened to the full album. I only listen to certain songs normally. So anyways, the album's really good, and I believe that is where Soulero made his first debut. If I'm wrong, someone can definitely let me know in the comments. But for as many years as 009's been out, I'm kind of surprised the song only has 565,000 views. To me, that's a little bit underrated for how good the song is, and for a complextro and electro song. So it definitely makes me wonder, I guess, why the song's so underrated for all these years. But again, to me, it's still a really good song, and I hope you guys kind of enjoy it as we listen through the song. So let's start with Soulero song Pussycat. Alright, just to kind of do a brief intro. So the white noise starts it off, which is really nice, kind of white noise downlifter. Then you have the kick and the clap, and then you kind of have a reverse kind of clap at the end of each phrase. I kind of like that reverse clap quite a bit. Gives a little more flow to this intro section. As you can tell also that this is kind of the more traditional introduction section for an electro song of this time period of 2012, as you guys have heard in previous songs. So it's going to be the more traditional kick, snare, or kick clap, and then additional sounds being added into the song as it progresses. So let's keep going. Alright, so right there was kind of the kind of this like ARP with a lot of reverb and delay. Also sounds like it's kind of sidechained. That was kind of slowly introduced with like a high pass filter. And then the one sound I just wanted to point out was the kind of almost like reverse reverbed vocal kind of coming in to lead into where this bass line is starting to come in this part of the intro. So that kind of reverbed reversed vocal was pretty cool. I didn't notice that in the past, so let's keep going. Alright, so as you can tell, it's a minute intro, so very traditional to electro at this time, but I want to say that the bass sound, to me, almost sounds like I don't know how you would describe it, almost like a talking robot in a sense, but it's so kind of funky that like when the bass line comes in, like the percussion itself doesn't really change, but the bass line gives it so much movement because it's just like the note progression is just so spaced and like staccatoed almost like that, like it just feels like it's moving, and it's kind of funky in a sense too, but there was some white noise in between, kind of the transition with the ARP kind of playing, and then the kind of reverse vocal kind of riser almost like into this break section here. So we'll get back into the song right now and continue. Alright, so that was the break section, so it's really cool. As I mentioned in the last video for Soulero's song Miss Me, his vocal chops, much like Astronauts, kind of are a little set apart. Like each artist has their own way of vocal chopping, and you can tell Soulero's vocal chops kind of right off the bat from like his song Miss Me. They kind of have that certain style, and you kind of hear that in this break section. And it's really cool how the kind of chords are slowly building up in this break section, and they're pretty sidechained as well, so you kind of can hear almost like a wubbing or a pumping sound kind of to them. And then the percussion is really cool, so there's like a top kick and then like almost like a filtered snare, a really high end pitch snare, just kind of playing like that, and that's like the only percussion playing, and then it kind of cuts out into kind of this gap of, or breath of air almost, as you want to say. So I think there was also kind of like a riser too, but it might have been more of like the white noise kind. But anyways, I just kind of want to point out that the percussion is pretty interesting because there's not any like really punchy snare build up. Like it just kind of has that kind of almost like filtered high pitched like percussion, and then it just kind of dips out, and then you kind of have the kind of breath of air, and then you're gonna have the sample, I think, come in and drop into the drop. So it's a little bit different than a lot of the other drops that you hear, like a big snare or a kick and a snare, or just a riser or something like that. So that's pretty interesting to hear in a song like this. I'd never really noticed that before, where there's no really big snare build up, at least in this first drop. So anyways, I just wanted to point out his vocal chops, the pumping sidechain of the chord progression slowly rising up, and then the percussion not being as aggressive in the build up. So let's keep going. Alright, so that first part of the drop, the kick comes in, it's like a kick clap kind of all the way through. There's the chord progression playing, which is basically like saw waves playing, but they aren't playing like whole notes. Like they're almost playing like 3/4 notes. It's like dun, dun, like there's kind of a gap in between. 4 different vocal samples. There's also kind of a lead sound in the back, but there are a lot of different vocal samples kind of thrown in, like different vocal chops and different kind of vocal samples kind of thrown in at ends of phrases and stuff. But I just kind of like how in this drop the chords are playing, but they don't play for the whole duration of the whole note, and it almost feels like the bass line is moving a little bit as well, and then with the complementing vocal chops and that kind of lead synth playing in the background, really with a lot of reverb and delay, it's just really cool how this all kind of meshes together, and you kind of feel like, ooh, like this is like a huge song, like it fills the space, and it's just pretty crazy. So yeah, we'll keep going in this drop, and I'll see if I can notice anything else. Alright, so basically in that part of the drop is the more kind of complextro style of like kind of the bass line taking the lead, more so than the first part of the drop where like the chords are really like the emphasis, like the saw wave chords. This is kind of like a harder bass kind of coming in, and then you kind of hear the vocal samples kind of in the back go kind of like that. That's pretty cool. And then you kind of have like a kind of a synth lead. I don't know how he had it, but it's playing like a certain lead kind of in the background. There's a lot of reverb and delay on that, but it kind of almost sounds like it kind of cuts in and out. But the main emphasis is kind of on that bass line and on the kind of vocal chops, kind of adding the extra flow on the 2 and the 4. So that's really cool. And I noticed kind of like a white noise-ish, but not really like the traditional white noise, more like the vocal kind of reverb riser that's almost the same way as it was in the beginning, kind of leading into this section. But the percussion's pretty much been the same. I don't see any variation on that part, so let's keep going. Alright, so in this second break section, it's similar to the first kind of break and build up section. What's interesting is that in this kind of build and break up section, the percussion's really filtered out like the last one. The chord progression is slowly kind of building up with the vocal chops, but again, there's not a gap or a breath of air this time, and there's no real like transitionary sound per se. I heard kind of a transitionary sound kind of in between, like transitioning within the break sections, kind of as the chord progression was building up. I kind of heard like a transitionary sound in the background, but here I don't really hear one as prominent as some other songs, and there's no breath of air, so pretty much it just kind of builds like it did before, and then like the kick just comes in and the second drop just starts. So it's pretty interesting how he changed the structure for the breath of air to be in the first drop versus the second drop. So let's keep going now and listen to the rest of the song. Alright, so that was Soulero song Pussycat. So we'll kind of rewind a little bit back to the second drop. So the second drop basically is similar to the first drop, where it's kind of the more like the first half of the first drop, and that drop is pretty much extended into the second drop. So there isn't that kind of focus on the bass line section in that second part of the first drop within this second drop. So it's just kind of the chords kind of playing, and it's kind of the same structure as the first part of the first drop and the second drop. So I tried to listen for anything that I missed in the first drop, and the only thing I think I missed were some of the different percussion sounds that were used, kind of like the reverse clap and stuff at the end of phrases. He still uses that in the second drop, and the note length within the chord progression. That was pretty nice. I think it is 3/4, or at least 3/4, or maybe a half a note, not a whole note, for some of those notes, because I did hear the gaps in there. But the outro was pretty interesting. I think there wasn't really like a rising sound, but there was like a down lifting sound or down shifting sound right when the outro started, because I didn't hear like a riser or anything to kind of build the tension into the outro. It just kind of went into the outro, and the outro is structured similarly to the intro section. I'm not sure if it was quite as long as a minute. It seemed like it was, I could be wrong, but it didn't seem like it was as long as like a minute for that outro section. So overall, that's Soulero song Pussycat. Really good song. I do come back to this song quite a bit to listen to on 009. Again, the vocal chops are really good. The bass line is really good. The chord progression is really good, and the use of not using like percussion to really build up is very unique. I've not heard many songs do it this way. Like, I remember Tut Tut Child's song Gravity just didn't really have much percussion rising up either. It just kind of stopped and then kind of went with the vocals. But this is the first time I really think I heard just kind of like filter percussion, and then that's it, and not many use of risers per se throughout the whole song, or at least they're not in the forefront to where they're like really exaggerated, kind of cutting out the sound. So overall, this is Soulero song Pussycat. Again, check out Soulero's music on Monstercat. Miss Me was a good song, but I just didn't think it was a good enough representation of Soulero's music, and his electro music only gets better from pretty much Pussycat. So if you look up his like later songs like Aura or Native, they're so good. So anyways, I hope you guys like this APA video. Please leave a like, subscribe, comment. Comments are always great. I recently had a Fowler comment on one of my videos, which is crazy. So, you know, anything can happen. So hope you guys like this video, and I'll see you guys in the next APA video. All right, peace.